This is video 12 of 14. I am talking to you guys tonight about death threats, attempts on my life, rape threats, things like that. Also threats of bodily harm. Before I start, I want you to know that this happened to me for about 15 years. I was receiving a lot of threats, but it got really intense back in 2016. That's when it started to get really over the top intense. So let me just give you a brief overview. For those of you who haven't seen my other videos, please watch my series. I'm talking about the worldwide trafficking ring, how it's set up, and what I went through myself, and about how I've suffered because I've tried to expose the worldwide trafficking ring. So I've talked about gang stalking, talked about being kidnapped, I've talked about being held hostage, I've talked about being raped, being trafficked. Now I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit more about the death threats and the attempts on my life that I received, and the threats of rape and bodily harm, which kind of went along with the stalking. Some of it had to do with the stalking, some of it had just to do with death threats and attempts on my life. So, as I mentioned the other night, this all began to get really crazy back in 2009. Back in 2009, I started getting threatened and harassed by John McCain. He was the first senator first person in politics that really went after me. And he himself was crazy lunatic. And to this day, I still don't know why he fully went after me. I believe that it was because of my bloodline status and because of things I went through. He started to harass me. He started to threaten me. He started to stalk me. He was doing a lot of stuff to me. Eventually, he stopped. But from there became the onslaught of attacks from numerous politicians and numerous celebrities and numerous billionaires, millionaires, famous people, world leaders. It was insane. I mean, these people went after me like crazy. And I've shared a lot about this in my gang stalking video. But I'm going to talk to you more about the threats today and the attempts on my life. So back in 2010 is when these attempts started. I started to get threatening text messages from various people, a lot of people connected to the military, people on Blackwater, people in the CIA, Department of Defense, various people. Some of them were famous, some of them were not, sending me death threats, sending me threats that they were going to rape me. People doxed my phone number and my address online and on the dark net, both publicly on the clear net and also on the dark net. So I started to get a barrage of stalking and harassment. And then I started to get death threats. And these death threats came in one after another for years. And it started out slowly in 2010 to 2015. But in 2014 actually, I got on the radar of some very, very high level sex traffickers. And I started to deal with these people on a much higher level than just the regular people that were harassing me. At first, like I said, it started out with Senator John McCain right after he ran for president. And I started to deal with him back in 2009 for a short time. And then he just started getting me connected to all his harassing friends, people in government, people that were politicians, celebrities that were harassing me because they were all Freemasons and they were all Luciferians or connected to the worldwide sex trafficking ring. And I learned very, very early on that the only way I could reach out to these people was to try to figure out what happened to them as a child, because most of these people were abused themselves as children. A lot of these abusers were actually abused themselves. It was the only way I could figure out how to help these people. I ended up leading people to the Lord because I'm a Christian pastor. And then I also ended up, like, maybe some of the people that didn't get led to the Lord, they just stopped harassing me because I got down to the root of cause of why they were attacking me, which was usually because of their own sexual abuse and their own abuse as children, ritualistic abuse, things like that. Most politicians and celebrities are survivors of sexual assault and ritualistic abuse. They may just not ever talk about it. And a lot of them become abusers themselves because they're continuing the cycle of abuse. Not all of them, but most of them. So I want to share with you guys about some of the things that I went through. In 2014 actually, I started to get harassed, like I said, by higher level traffickers. I started being harassed by a man named Jacob Rothschild. That's a long story. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail. If you guys want to ask me questions, you can. Like I said, I'm open to any questions. You can send me an email at info@theliontriumphs.com, or you can message me if you have any questions. I'm open to any questions about anything that I'm talking about. I'm just giving brief overviews because it would take forever for me to tell you my full story. So I'm just sharing brief overviews about the things I've been through. So some of these things are more painful to talk about than others. My video I did earlier, I named names of my rapists and my traffickers. If you didn't watch that video yet, I would encourage you to watch that. That was very painful to talk about. This isn't as hard to talk about, although it is a little triggering, but it's not nearly as hard as to talk about than the actual assaults and the actual trafficking that I went through. So, So in 2014, I started getting harassed by a man named Jacob Rothschild. Now, if you guys have never heard that name before, you can Google it. A lot of people who know about conspiracies will know that Jacob Rothschild is a Rothschild family member. He was part of the worldwide banking system. Jacob Rothschild's had numerous conspiracy theories against him, and most of the theories are right. That man was one of the most evil men that I've ever encountered. Jacob Rothschild was very, very old, but he started to harass me. He started to call me. He started to text me. He started to email me. He started to threaten my life. He started to threaten to rape me. He started to threaten to have me kidnapped. He actually paid people to come and try to have me kidnapped and try to have me killed. He had numerous attempts on my life because I was exposing the Illuminati and I was exposing the occult and I was leading people in the occult to Jesus, and that was ticking him off because he was one of the highest people in the occult at one point. So Jacob Rothschild was the first one that really started to do the threats besides for John McCain. And then it continued into me being harassed by Jacob Rothschild's handlee, who everybody on the face of the planet knows because this person is extremely famous and he's one of the most talked about people on the face of the planet. And his handlee is none other than Donald J. Trump. So in 2014, Donald J. Trump started harassing me, and it really got out of control in 2015. But I was contacted by him for the first time in about December 2014, I would say, maybe the beginning of 2015. I'm not 100% sure if it was January 2015 or if it was 2014, but it was somewhere around there. Donald J. Trump is a lot crazier than he even seems publicly, guys. He has assaulted me. He has attempted to kill me. He traffics some of my friends. This guy is a psychotic lunatic. He's insane. And this man went after me in 2014. It started, or like I said, I don't know if it was, I can't remember if it was December 2014 or January 2015, but it was around that time. And the first time that he contacted me, he started to threaten to kill me. He told me he was going to do what it took to have people kill me. He started to harass me relentlessly. And for a short time, he was harassing me relentlessly, but then he kind of left me alone and he started sending his peons after me when he started to run for president. However, there was a time where Donald actually had an actual attempt on my life that I can actually verify. There's receipts of it where he actually tried to have me killed on a ministry trip in 2015. Or 2015 or early 2016. Again, I'm kind of foggy about some of the dates because they kind of overlap. Some of those dates were like either the beginning of the year or the very end of the year, but it was around that time. So it was 2014 or 15 that I met him for the first time. And then it was 2015 or 16 that I dealt with him having this death threat this attempt against me. He actually tried to he paid a man to actually get on my train with me on my ministry trip, and they actually attempted to kill me. Luckily, I had law enforcement that was watching out for me because I was working with law enforcement even at this point. This was 11 years ago that I started working with law enforcement, and these people were trying to help me and protect me because I was being harassed by so many well-known people at this point. Now, Donald kind of was the catalyst for that. Donald himself did not traffic me. He raped me. He did assault me, but he trafficked my friends. Donald Trump was being handled by Jacob Rothschild and by a lot of other people, okay? Donald Trump is in the top 10 traffickers in the world. He's a very, very evil man. He's a psychopath. He's crazy. And I have been one of his victims, and there's hundreds and thousands of victims. And for those of you who don't know, there's hundreds of videos linking him to sex trafficking, to rape, to pedophilia, and to sexual assault of adults as well, but also to sexual assaults of animals. So there's a lot of things linking him, and he will pay for the crimes he committed. I believe that. I believe justice will be served. But anyhow, Donald Trump put a threat out against me, and he paid this man to get on the train with me. The guy tried to kill me and my ministry partner, and we were completely attacked by this man. He tried to attack us and tried to kill us. Luckily, law enforcement got in, and this man was removed from our train, and I found out later on, I knew that he was working with Donald, but I didn't know that he was actually good friends with Donald, and he got arrested, and he was taken care of. So that was my first attempt. That was really intense. After that, it was numerous people that were famous that came after me. I had death threats on my phone. I had got phone calls and emails and texts from people like Roger Stone, people like Rudy Giuliani, people like Mike Pompeo. I had people like, let's see, I'm trying to think of some of the other people that threatened me. I had people, well, again, one of my main abusers and harassers was Eric Prince, who, if you don't know who he is, he's a well-known billionaire. He was one that threatened me. I had people such as Marjorie Taylor Greene threaten to kill me. I've had death threats from different well-known celebrities and politicians. Most of them are tied to the alt-right, but there are a couple people that are Democrats that are controlled opposition, but most of them are alt-righters. I had people from different forms of the military attempt to put lives on me. Mark Esper, who used to be part of the Department of Defense, he was somebody who actually put a hit out on me back in, I think it was 2019. He actually came to my hotel and he actually had to try to have me and my friend killed. I have had death threats in my text messages and on my phone from Jim Jordan, who, as some of you guys may know, he's been known for being a pedophile as well. He was involved in a cover-up of sexual assault of young men, and I think he's also was allegations against pedophilia. I know he's an abuser. He assaulted me. He's a very evil man as well, Jim Jordan. And then we have people such as, like I said, Marjorie Taylor Greene. She gave me death threats. And then there's some people on the left that are controlled opposition who used to stalk me and used to threaten me. One of those people is Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, who is a shrill. She's a troll and she's a shrill. She's not a leftist. She's actually just in it for her own power and her own power grabs. She's not a leftist. She's not on the side of justice. She's not who she says she is. I'll just say that. AOC used to stalk me when I lived in DC, and she actually used to like threaten me. I had not death threats from her, but I did have threats of harm against me. Chuck Palahniuk, who was an author who wrote Fight Club. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that book, but he used to send me death threats and used to send me harassments. I had death threats, like I said, by Rudy Giuliani. Rudy Giuliani used to threaten me and my friends as well, and actually put a hit out to have my best friend raped in Canada, and actually paid somebody to go and assault my friend. Luckily, my friend was not assaulted. Law enforcement got involved before it happened. But these are things that we've had to endure. And then I've had death threats from Melania Trump, who was one of my traffickers. She used to threaten me a lot. Joe Biden was a trafficker of mine as well, but Joe Biden did not threaten me. He just was obsessed with trying to assault me and then selling me. He did not send me any death threats or anything. He was just really crazy and he did some really insane things, but he was just a trafficker. I've had death threats from various celebrities. I had death threats from Kanye West. Kanye West threatened to kill me and he threatened to rape me. I had death threats from Stephen Miller. I had death threats from Mike Pence. I had death threats from John Bolton. I had death threats from different billionaires. There were some billionaires that were involved in that as well. Like I said, Eric Prince was one of the main people who's tormented me my whole life. I've had death threats from Madonna. I actually dealt with her a couple of times and she actually threatened me. Madonna is a trafficker. She's a Luciferian. Madonna needs to pay for her crimes as well. She's very, very evil. I didn't mention her earlier in my videos because she herself did not abuse me, but she is a trafficker and she wants to cover up her crimes. So she's a very evil woman. I've had death threats from Sean Hannity. I've had rape threats from Sean Hannity. I was trafficked by Sean Hannity. He's a very evil man. Tucker Carlson, I had death threats from him. I had death threats from Jeanine Pirro. I had death threats from Tommy Lehren. All these people that are connected to Fox News. Fox News is a very evil group of people. And then I had some death threats from Congress people. Mitch McConnell, he used to threaten to rape me. He used to threaten to kill me. I had Greg Abbott, who was one of the people that abused me, who was the governor of Texas. I mean, he didn't abuse me, but he made money off of the abuse. He himself did not abuse me, but he was one of the people that made money off the abusers. He bought me and he sold me to people. He himself did not sexually assault me, obviously, but he did buy me so that he could sell me. He is a very evil man, Greg Abbott. And then I had death threats from, I'm trying to think of the other people that I want to mention in this video. I mentioned Roger Stone. Oh yeah, I had some threats from Gina Haspel, who was the old CIA director. I had rape threats from various celebrities. Scott Baio, he threatened me. I had calls from various celebrities, various politicians, people, because I was actively exposing the Illuminati and I was actually actively exposing Blackwater and I was actively exposing the traffickers. And I'm never going to stop doing that. I believe one day I'm going to get justice, and I believe every victim out there on the face of the planet that's been trafficked or abused by the elite will get justice for what they've been through. That's what my prayer is. I believe that every day. I know that there are a lot of people who have suffered at the hands of the Illuminati, have suffered at the traffickers, suffered at the hands of the occult. And I believe right now that every single one of those people will get their justice eventually. Justice is real for people. People have got to understand that. I had death threats from Ivanka Trump. Like I said, the Trump family's harassed me a little bit, but it's mostly been Melania, Donald and Ivanka. Ivanka threatened to kill me. She actually put a hit out on me once, but luckily, again, law enforcement stopped it. A lot of these things have been stopped, thankfully, by law enforcement, but I have had attempts on my life. There's been times where there's been near misses. I have gone through a lot at the hands of the American government and at the hands of celebrities and politicians. Let's see, I'm trying to think of the other people that I want to mention tonight. There's so many people that used to harass me, and I'm trying to think of the other ones that I want to mention in this video. Yeah, like I said, Stephen Miller, John Bolton. Then there was Mike Pence for a short time. And then I dealt with like a lot of the Trump's administration. Like they were doing a smear campaign against me, and they were also working with they had like a room at the White House, which is going to come out eventually. I really thoroughly believe this. Law enforcement's working on investigating this. There was a room at the White House that they used to do counterintelligence operations at the White House against anybody who knew too much, anybody who exposed things, anybody who was getting people to listen to them about what was going on, especially about the trafficking and the terrorism and the Illuminati. There was they're called counterintelligence organizations, and this group was happening at the White House, and most of his first administration was involved in it. Not the current administration, but the first administration was involved in it. I know that J.D. Vance was working during that time as a controlled opposition person who was working behind the scenes with the alt-right. He himself hadn't flipped to alt-right at that time, I don't think, but he was working behind the scenes with these people. I just found out recently, actually, that he was somebody who was doing things behind the scenes that I didn't even know about, that he was threatening people, he was paying people off. I had threats from Steve Mnuchin back in the day. Basically, anybody in Trump's administration used to harass me or threaten me, except for Sean Spicer. He's the only one that didn't threaten me. But somebody, at least one threat from every one of the people in Trump's former administration, his top-level leadership, that is, tried to threaten me or harass me, especially people like Pompeo, people like Stephen Miller, people like that. They used to really, really torment me. And most of these people were trying to protect not just Trump, but they were trying to protect their own butts because, Steve Bannon. How can I forget Steve Bannon? Steve Bannon was majorly tormenting me for about a year and a half, 2 years. He was torturing me, and he called me up, and he used to email me. He used to stalk me in person. He would pay for people to stalk me in person. He would threaten to kill me. He would threaten to rape me. He put active attempts on my life. He tried to have me killed several times. Jim Jordan's another person. Jim Jordan actually put a hit out on my life. He told people that he was going to have me killed. He tried to have me assassinated and killed. He tried to have me kidnapped. These are the people that I deal with because they're trashy people that are like mob people that want to silence people. And there are people who have died over exposing this stuff, which is why I'm very public. Because a long time ago, back in 2016 or 2017, law enforcement told me, they said, be very public about stuff because if something happens to you, people will ask questions. And that's what I've done. I've been very, very public because if something happens to me, I want people to know there's a reason this happened to me. Just like Virginia, one of Jeffrey Epstein's victims, last year supposedly committed suicide. I don't believe that for a nanosecond. She posted online years ago and she said, I will never commit suicide. And if I do, investigate it. Suddenly she commits suicide. Suspicious? Absolutely. Somebody killed her. Somebody murdered poor Virginia, and she's a victim. She was already a victim, but she was not suicidal, and she said that. So if anything happens to me, I want you guys to know I did not kill myself. I never will kill myself. I have had times where I've been depressed and a lot of darkness around me, but I will not actually kill myself. We have to understand how important it is to be public about these things as victims, because if we're not and something happens, people won't ask questions. But if something does happen, then people can ask questions. And that's what happened to poor Virginia. And I really believe that with poor Virginia, she said she would never commit suicide. And then all of a sudden she committed suicide. No. I've been in times where there's been, I don't believe that one iota that she did that. I've been in times where I felt really dark, a lot of darkness, but I'm not going to actually commit suicide. I felt suicidal at times, but I'm never going to actually commit suicide. If something happens to me, if someone silences me, I want you guys to know that somebody did this and it wasn't me that did it. And I'm just saying that because I'm just saying the same thing that Virginia said. There's been times when darkness has been very dark around me, and I attempted suicide when I was 17, but I'm never going to attempt again. I feel suicidal at times. I feel darkness at times because of the trauma, but I'm never going to attempt again. And I can promise you guys that. So I want you guys to know that as well. And I was told by law enforcement years ago to publicly address these death threats, the rape threats, the attempts on my life, the trafficking, the kidnappings, these things that I've been through, because then there's a record of things. So if people try to do something, there's a record. There's been people who want to be Jane Does. They don't want their identity known. And I respect that. Okay. Everybody has their own thing that they want to do. But those people are putting themselves in danger, because if their identity ever does get leaked, or if somebody knows who they are behind the scenes, they could be taken care of and shut down. I've heard stories about victims who were connected to Epstein's trafficking ring and Trump's trafficking ring who never got a chance to share their story because they were actively being hunted by the cult, which is pretty much the glorified mob. Because these people, Epstein, Trump, they're like the mob. You know, they're very mobby. They're tied to the Illuminati, but they're also very, very mobby people. And they behave like the mob. They silence people. They try to silence people. I've had so many attempts on my life. I had so many death threats. I've had so many rape threats, but I've had receipt after receipt after receipt. I can't have receipts for everything, but I've collected as many receipts as possible. I've tried to remember locations of where I was trafficked, where I was kidnapped. I've tried to remember as much as I could so that I can share this stuff. Because when I was trafficked, a couple of times, I was drugged really badly. I don't remember all the locations because I was drugged, but I remember what places looked like inside. And I do remember as many locations as I can. And because of the drugs, sometimes I didn't remember the exact location, so I can't testify about exact locations, but I can say approximately where they're at. I can say approximately where they're at, and I'm actually going to do I was actually going to do 14 videos. I might do a 15th video actually addressing the actual locations of some of the places that these things happen. So maybe there can be an investigation. Maybe people can look into this. Maybe there's other people being trafficked in those locations. I don't know. You know, I hope that there's not. This could have been a one-off thing for me that happened just to me, but I would guarantee, knowing how traffickers work, that this is not a one-off thing. These people do the same thing over and over again. Traffickers do the same thing over and over again. So I've had all these death threats from all these different people. Like I said, most of them were alt-righters. Most of them were the GOP, because most of the GOP is involved in the occult, or is involved in the Illuminati, or tied to the Illuminati, involved in the mob, involved in the worldwide trafficking ring. There have been a couple Democrats, but those people are mostly controlled opposition. And I just am heartbroken over how evil some of these people can be, because they are. And there's been a lot of other people that were tied to these people, not famous people, but I've had a lot of other death threats and rape threats from rando Facebook accounts, from rando Instagrams, from rando phone numbers. And I've actually done some tracing, and with the law enforcement I've worked with, and we've actually traced some of these phone calls and some of these text messages and some of these harassing messages actually from government facilities in the Department of Defense, or in Lavenwood, Kansas. There's a governmental facility in Lavenwood, Kansas, that there's a hacking scheme from. There's people that do calls, and they threaten people. They hack people's phones, and they make up stock accounts on Facebook from the specific military base in Lavenwood, Kansas. I don't know where exactly it's at, but I know it's in that vicinity there in Lavenwood, Kansas. And that specific vicinity also has a very high level of trafficking going on. There's people being trafficked in and out. I believe it's that military facility that's involved in the trafficking. Not 100% sure, but I do know that there's some high level military grade involvement in the trafficking going on, both at the Pentagon and in Lavenwood, Kansas. I don't know where the exact location at Lavenwood, Kansas is, but I know that law enforcement's gone back and they've traced into Lavenwood, Kansas. They found that some of these stock accounts, some of the death threats, some of the emails, some of the phone numbers have actually been coming right from that exact location. There's something going on in that area. And I don't know what exactly it is, but I am working with law enforcement to try to figure out what's going on in that area. I haven't been there myself. I've never been there, but there's something key going on there, something that the government's working with, something there to try to silence victims of abuse, silence trafficking victims, and trying to silence people who are whistleblowers as well. And then the Pentagon, a lot of the calls and the emails and the phone numbers and the IP addresses have actually gone back to the Pentagon as well, the ones that are not famous people. So some of the death threats I've received are actually directly from the American military. Now, why is the American military threatening a private civilian Christian pastor? That's a good question. Why is the American military, were they involved in my kidnapping? That's a good question. Why are they trafficking animals outside of the Pentagon? Why are they under investigation for child pornography at the Pentagon? Things that make you go, These are things to think about. And I'm not the only person that's been targeted by the American military. There's a lot of people who've been targeted by them. And I'm not saying that everybody in the military is bad. Please know that. Again, I keep saying this in my videos. I am talking about a specific group of people. There is a large trafficking ring at the Pentagon. This trafficking ring is working with the American government, working with celebrities, working with billionaires, and working with foreign leaders to threaten, harass, traffic, and rape innocent people, innocent children, innocent animals, and innocent adults. These people are disgusting and they need to be exposed. The other thing that I want to share with you, another person that used to threaten me and used to harass me, actually, and I shared about this as well the other day, is Mohammed bin Salman. He is part of the Saudi royal family. He's a psychotic lunatic. He's one of the people that I've dealt with. Most of the people I've dealt with have been American citizens, have been people that are part of the American government or celebrities, politicians, things like that. But he was one of the people from another country that I dealt with. This man put a hit out on my life, on me and my friend, back in 2019, December 2019. I was staying at a hotel right near the embassy for one of the Middle Eastern nations. And he had a Saudi Arabian assassin actually come try to kill my friend and I, tried to kidnap us. They wanted to kidnap us and sell us into trafficking even back then. And he actually put a hit out on our lives. He paid for this hit. There's a paper trail that goes back to him trying to have me and my friend murdered. And I'm not the only person that this man's tried to have killed. This man is a lunatic. He's absolutely crazy. And what is he that I talked about the other day? Oh, he's Blackwater. Everything goes back to Blackwater, the CIA, or the Department of Defense. And a few other things go back to MI5 or Red Mossad. But almost everything goes back to the Blackwater, the CIA, and the Department of Defense, which I call the unholy trinity. And the people that are IC or IC adjacent like I am, I'm not actual IC, but I'm IC adjacent. People who are IC adjacent or IC agents actually call Blackwater, the CIA, and the Department of Defense the unholy trinity, because they are behind most of the sex trafficking, most of the torment, and most of the abuse that people are going through as far as people who are being targeted. Epstein is the tip of the iceberg. Epstein was a Red Mossad, CIA, and Blackwater agent. He was an operative for Blackwater. I don't think he was an actual agent, but he was an operative. And he worked with CIA and with Red Mossad behind the scenes. He was crazy. And a lot of his ties were with Blackwater, the CIA, and with the DOD, and with Red Mossad. And it all goes back to the trafficking. The trafficking is in every part of the American government, and it needs to be exposed. So I'm exposing these things. I hope that someday that the truth all comes out. Keep protesting, keep fighting, keep exposing what you know. Again, I'm not mentioning every single person right now because I don't have any notes in front of me. I'm just sharing things that are coming to the top of my head. I can share more later on if I remember more stuff. If I remember to write down stuff and I actually remember that I didn't write down certain names and I didn't share certain things. I'm just sharing stuff off the top of my head. The only notes that I have that I read to you guys was my video earlier where I named the names of some of my traffickers and abusers. But otherwise, I'm just going off the top of my head. I don't have notes. I'm just sharing the things off the top of my head. But these are the main people that harassed me. These are the main people that threatened me. Famous people. There was a lot of other people involved. There were other congressmen, other senators. There were other people involved that I've been asked not to mention publicly for a reason because they're still under investigation or because for safety concerns. But I'm mentioning the people that I'm allowed to mention or the people that I can mention. So I just want you guys to know that there is a huge trafficking ring going on. It's a lot larger than even the Epstein files, and that's pretty big. So please stay on the ball. Don't give up on fighting for people to get their justice. Every survivor everywhere needs their justice. Everybody needs to know what happened behind the scenes. Everybody needs to know what's going on. Everybody needs it to be time for full disclosure. It's time for full disclosure. It's time that the worldwide trafficking ring, the Illuminati, the occult, and the Luciferians are exposed for exactly what they are. It's time that the pedophiles, it's time that the rapists, and it's time that all of the animal rapists and traffickers as well, the bestiaphile ring, that all these people are exposed. We need to keep exposing them. Like I said, I was going to only do 14 videos. I think I'm going to do a 15th video actually saying the locations of the places that I was abused at. As many as I can remember. Again, like I said, I can't remember everything because I was drugged a lot of times when these things happen, but I do remember some of the locations. So I think I'm going to do a 15th video on top of what I'm already doing. If you have any questions that you have for me, and I keep saying this over and over again, if there's any questions you have for me about what I'm talking about, you want clarity on a matter, you have a question about something that's happened in your own life or around someone that you know, send me a message, info@theliontriumphs.com, or send me a message here on Facebook because I'm here to answer any questions. I want to help people. I want to expose the truth as much as possible, and I want to help people to know the truth about everything that's going on. Have a great night.